season used to give us a little time to breathe, but that's out the window. That's not happening. So we got these 1,400 players in the transfer portal. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, we're going to run through some of the spots that have been impacted by either early departures to the NFL draft, with Kyrie Elam being that guy, or just departures period to the NFL draft, and what you see heading into 22. And we know it's early, and spring ball is going to tell us a whole lot. But starting with Kyrie Elam, obviously one of the better players at his position in the SEC or nationally. How do you think that looks at this point for 22?
For 22, well, I probably can go ahead and go straight to some of the transfer portal talk to kind of mend that, because Florida did get a commitment recently from Jalen Kimber. He was at Georgia last year, so he transferred from Georgia to Florida, and he was a projected starter for that Georgia defense, Mark. But coming out of spring last year, had a nagging shoulder injury, played very little at the beginning of the season, and then decided to have shoulder surgery. So he barely played at all for Georgia this year. And then decided after the season, instead of, and Georgia had a really good defensive back recruiting class. So he probably could have stayed around and went into that battle one more time, and probably held his own for a bit since he won the starting job, or they said he wanted the starting job last year, but decides to go ahead and commit to Florida through the transfer portal. And for 2022, all right, Jason Marshall, 5-star quarterback who got a lot of playing time as a true freshman, he's got one side locked up. So now you're going to have a battle on the opposite side of him, Jaden Hill, who will be coming back from an injury himself, just like Kimber, and also Avery Helm, who got a good bit of playing time this past year as well. So a really good cornerback battle for Florida with Kyrie Elam going. And look, that actually wasn't set in stone after the season. More than likely he was going to go. His draft stock did drop a little this year. He was a mid to high first-round draft pick before the season. Now slid back to maybe tail end of the first round, high second-round pick. So there was some talk Kyrie Elam could come back, but now since he didn't, it opened up a spot for Florida in the secondary, and Jalen Kimber transferred from Georgia.
Kimber's a guy, as you mentioned, only one game played for the Bulldogs last year, 2 the season before. But, 247 Sports composite top 10 cornerback coming out of high school, top 100 player, 105 in the nation. So talented guy, definitely comes to the fold there. Looking at running back, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this has been a deep position for the Gators the last few years. There's been quite a few guys that are capable, really good players. Nobody that's been emerged as any kind of superstar, but certainly 2 of those guys have been Damian Pierce and Malik Davis.
Yeah, Mark, Damian Pierce was part of Dan Mullen's first class in 2018, and then decided to leave. There's some talk maybe he'd come back as well. Malik Davis, he's a holdover from Jim McElwain. It was 2017 was his freshman year there. So both those guys are gone. And look, we had talked about it all year, how deep Florida was. You start with those 2. You throw Naquan Wright, DeMarcus Bowman, Lorenzo Lingard. Well, the last 2, they barely got any playing time once SEC conference play started. Even when Florida was losing games, it was still Pierce, Davis, and Wright for the most part. And, mostly rightfully so, because those guys, honestly, they didn't get the ball enough. So you wish Florida would have run the ball a bit more. But Pierce, Davis on their way out. So that does leave and Naquan Wright elevated up. And that's if he can bounce back from an injury, Mark. He got hurt in that last season finale game against FSU, had surgery. So going into spring, we thought, okay, it's only going to be DeMarcus Bowman and Lorenzo Lingard taking part in spring at the running back position. But then Florida gets another transfer, one from Louisiana. Montrell Johnson's going to follow Billy Napier at the running back position. Mark, he was a true freshman last year, rushed 162 times, 838 yards, had a 99-yard run versus Arkansas State this year in a game for Louisiana. So true freshman transfers, going to have lots of eligibility left to go to Gainesville. So it does give Florida now some depth going into spring at the running back position. And then we'll see how Florida got a commit recently from Travis Etienne's little brother at the running back position as well. So they're getting numbers back there. But for spring, they only have 3 of guys that have some football experience.
if you get like 1/3 of the production out of Trevor that you got out of Travis at Clemson, you'd be in good shape. Because
sign me up right now. Yeah, I'll take a third
absolutely.
of that and Florida be in good shape.
Talking about the most prolific running back in the history of the ACC right there. Yeah, Dameon Pierce, what a productive guy that he's been. 13 touchdowns this past year, almost 6 yards per carry at 5.7, and Malik
And
Davis
Mark,
at 5.3.
only 100 carries. I mean,
Yeah, that's not a whole lot. 13
it
games.
That staff's gone, thankfully. But yeah,
Caught 19 passes out of the backfield with 3 touchdowns. So yeah, you want to get him the football.
Right. Pro Football Focus had him as their top-rated running back. Granted, he is somewhat limited with 100 carries, but with those 100 carries, he made something happen when he touched the ball.
Okay, so 5.7 and 5.3 yards per carry reflects well along the offensive line as well. Your thoughts about replacing a few veterans up there?
Yeah, on the right side, Stuart Reese, who had transferred from Mississippi State a couple years ago, came to Florida. Probably didn't really live up to what we thought he'd be coming into Dan Mullen's offense, and the familiarity he'd have with the staff and Dan Mullen's offense didn't really ever translate. He had a tough time staying healthy when he came to Florida. And also Gene DeLance at right tackle, struggled at right tackle a good bit. Was better in run sets than he was in pass sets. But those two now are gone. But Florida hit the lottery mark on the transfer portal as far as offensive linemen goes. Osiris Torrance, ESPN named him one of the top 100 players going into last season, 2021. ESPN just put out their All-American preseason list. He is on there as one of the 5 best offensive linemen in the country right now. Florida grabs him. He transfers from Louisiana, follows Billy Napier to Gainesville, 6'5", 335. He started 38 games in his career, 14 in 2021. Mark, this is, Florida needed help because of who they lost, but also Florida needed just a talent infusion along the offensive line. They went in the transfer portal and got one of the best ones. One who probably, Mark, you talked about NFL draft. One who we could be talking about the NFL draft in Osiris Torrance, but decided to follow Billy Napier to Gainesville. And Florida absolutely needed him to kind of mark for a couple reasons. Like as I said, a talent infusion, but also it's good to bring somebody, a really good player who knows the culture of Billy Napier, who can share along the offensive line what it takes, the system. Maybe you bring a player along like that, and maybe the offensive line as a whole takes part of Billy Napier's offense, gels together pretty quick, and Florida can rely on that run game, led by Osiris Torrance leading the way along the offensive line. So I think it was a big need for the Gators. They got into a battle with LSU and Auburn along the way for Torrance, but visited over the weekend and then made his commitment this past Monday to join the Gators and Billy Napier.
Got David Waters on the line from Gators Breakdown. Please join him right here, whether it be here on YouTube, Gators Breakdown. It's easy to find, or go to your favorite audio platform and search Gators Breakdown. It's one of the top. What is it, David? I see it climbing the charts constantly. I see you deliver these stats that just keep to be soaring constantly.
Yeah. Thanks everybody out there. Just hit 4 million lifetime listens there, Mark. So what was summer 2016? You and I had SEC Breakdown, transition to Gators Breakdown that same summer as well. So a few years there now, over 4 million listens, and somewhere up around top 30, top 20 sports, football podcasts on Apple Podcasts during that Billy Napier hiring era. There.
Yeah, that always helps.
It always helps.
Jump starts a little bit. You want your team to either, when you're just looking, follow me, people here, from a business standpoint, you want them to obviously be really good, but if they can't be really good, you need some controversy or you need something to go wrong. One or the other. You don't want a bunch of 8-5 seasons. Doesn't usually move the needle much. So David's done an amazing job with that. And if you love college football, even if you're not a Florida football fan, but especially if you follow anybody else in the SEC, you got to check out David's work there at Gators Breakdown. I'll be here all the time and working on everything that I got to work on. I'll have another tab open. I'll just let David and Gators Breakdown roll and listen to and soak up the information. So that's the way to do it right there.